one of the issues about China is that people always talk about is that they think in the long term, whether it be government or companies, they think for the long term. 10 years, 25 years, 50 years down the road. US corporations, on the other hand, think about the next quarterly earnings season, the quarterly report. President Trump is now proposing an end to this long-standing practice of the quarterly report. The 10Q, as it is, has been mandatory since 1970, when the SEC shifted from semi-annual or interim to quarterly. Since then, it's repeatedly been criticized from business leaders, including Warren Buffett and Jamie Dimon. The two argued in a 2018 op-ed in the Journal that short-termism was harming the US economy. Changing it would bring the US back more and closer to the UK and Europe. There, most companies report interim reports every 6 months. Mainland China still requires quarterly. Interestingly, Sam Stovall is the chief investment strategist at CFRA. So this has been around a long time, this idea. In a sense, China does do quarterly reporting, but it's a mindset, isn't it? Because China's companies aren't susceptible to investor pressure as much. Do you support this idea of the president going from quarterlies to interim semi-annual?
Hey, Richard, good to talk to you again. Certainly, by switching to a semi-annual reporting period, the positives really are focused more on the companies themselves, because then they can focus more on long-term strategies rather than short-term profits. Also, it could end up reducing their costs because it frees up staff and thereby increases profitability. And as you just mentioned, it already has the backing of the two very high-profile people within the industry. Yet from a retail investor perspective, it's going to make them feel even at a greater disadvantage when compared with Wall Street analysts, since they're going to be receiving less frequent transparency in terms of updating earnings and revenue forecasts, as well as operational guidance.
But the quarterly reporting has been blamed for a short-termism. I mean, we've seen how the market gyrates to some sort of almost like petulant child status when a company misses a quarterly or there's one little digit off. By moving to a semi-annual, you do take off that pressure?
Yes, you do. And management has done an excellent job of managing expectations, because in 64 of the last 66 quarters, actual results have exceeded end of quarter estimates. So rarely do company managements not guide down significantly or appropriately enough so that they just end up beating them. So I think that by moving to a 6-month reporting schedule would actually increase volatility in share prices, because you would have increasingly outdated assumptions, because you're focusing on 6 months rather than on 3 months.
So let me throw that back at you. How then do you get rid of that short-termism? And I would say it's the street that has the short-termism. Did they make the numbers in this quarter? Did they do this? Did they do that? Which puts the unreasonable pressure on the management of a company to perform for the quarter.
Well, that is true, but as William, one of the rail titans, said back in the 1800s, the public be damned, I work for the shareholders. And so as a result, the companies are going to do what shareholders want. And if they want short-term data, then they will get the short-term data. The SEC is the one that sets the precedent, sets the timing. The Securities Exchange Act of 1934 only says that the commission may prescribe the frequency of reporting. So it's not necessarily 3 months is the law. It is the requirement by the SEC, which could change. And if it does this time, it'll probably take about 18 months to do so, which would be toward the end of President Trump's term in office.
I suppose it really just depends whether the president wants this. Since it, as you know, and I'm grateful you point out it's an SEC matter, he basically gets the SEC chairman to do it.
Yes, and there's a
Right.
3-to-1 majority of
Right.
Republicans on the FTC with one vacancy.
Excellent, sir. By the way, it was in. I do love AI. I do love it. I'm not going to guarantee this is accurate, but at least it's close. It was in 1883. It was John Dickinson Sherman, the reporter, asked. It was William Henry Vanderbilt. And he said, do your limited express trains pay, or do you run them for the accommodation of the public? And Vanderbilt responded, accommodation of the public be damned. We run them because we have to for the shareholders. Thank you, sir. I am grateful.
All right.